Hey everyone, Abbas here. Welcome to part 2 of my House of Neverdone Devlog series. Now, full disclosure, this is actually my second attempt at a script for this video. I had a full script done and recorded, but after I did that, I made a ton more progress on the game. So now I have a way more to talk about, but I'd rather not save for part 3, just to give you guys some more details as soon as possible. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go watch part 1 first, as I won't be covering the same topics again, but I will give you a quick recap. In part 1, I described the premise of the game, a point-and-click horror game set in a house that got bigger on the inside, inspired by House of Leaves. I described how I made the clicking system and PSX stuff. So yeah, with that out of the way, we're ready to talk about what I've been up to since then. But first, I want to thank you guys for the support I got on that first video. It was actually my first video to ever get a significant amount of views, and practically doubled my subscriber count overnight. So if you're here from that first video and sticking around, welcome. But enough of my rambling, on to game stuff. So after the last video, I realized something was off about the bedroom, doors, and player turning. It was all way too smooth. I'm going for a PSX style. The game shouldn't look buttery smooth. It's off-putting. So I fixed that. The way each of the things I mentioned work is to use timelines. Timelines are what you use in Unreal to smoothly transition between numbers. You give the timeline a time limit, say 5 seconds, and then during those 5 seconds, you can plot out some information. Like if your initial value is 0, you can have it very slowly transition to 1 over those 5 seconds for a nice, smooth transition. Usually, you attach a lerp to this. A lerp takes the information from the timeline, in our example, slowly go from 0 to 1 over 5 seconds, and uses that information to smoothly transition between two values. Like for the camera rotation, the timeline is only 0.3 seconds long, and smoothly goes from 0 to 1 over that time. But the lerp uses our current camera position and adds either positive 22.5 or negative 22.5 to control the angles the player can look at. So it will transition over 0.3 seconds and to add 22.5 to our current camera rotation. That's enough about timelines though. My apologies if that wasn't the best explanation. Anyway, this smooth movement is too smooth, if you ask me. It feels out of place and wrong. So to fix that was incredibly simple. I added a 0.05 second delay to the end of the timeline. This makes it so that it can only properly send information to the lerp every 0.05 seconds, giving the illusion of lag. It makes everything go from 60 FPS to appearing like it's only at 15 FPS. I applied this to everything that moves, which is currently only doors opening when you hover over them and the ceiling fan in the player's bedroom. I then changed the way the player's flashlight works. Instead of being fixed and static, always facing the way the player is, the light now follows your mouse cursor. The way this works is every game tick, which fires off every frame, we get the position that the cursor is in the game world and rotates your light to face it. I also applied fake lag to this as well, so the light doesn't update smoothly. However, while I was working on this, it dawned on me that this fake lag effect could be nauseating for some people. And we can't have that, so I finally got around to adding some game settings. Now, from the player's inventory, you can access the game settings, which currently only has 2 options. The option to toggle the fake lag, which will instantly disable the fake lag effect on all relevant objects, making them buttery smooth again. And the second option lets you adjust the amount of film grain, in case you think it makes it hard to see. So far, House of Neverdone has been a walking simulator. There's been nothing to do except click around the environment and look at stuff. That all changes now. It took me a long time to actually figure out what the gameplay of this game would be. I knew I wanted it to be scary, but I can't just make a game where you walk around and things scare you. So I settled on making it be a puzzle game. In the game, you wake up in your bedroom, walk down the hall, go downstairs, and then walk out your front door. With the reason being that the player was concerned that the rumbling that woke them up was an earthquake, so they needed to go outside to check. But when you try to walk out the front door, you'll wind up back in your bedroom again, walking out of the closet. But things are different. There are a ton of differences in the room that you can take note of. They're important for the first puzzle, which is a game of Spot the Difference. You click on the lock on your door, and the game gives you a tutorial on its puzzle mechanics. Most notably, once you click on a puzzle element in any room, you can always access that puzzle from the puzzle section of your inventory, as long as you stay in the same room. Trying to leave the room will cause the puzzle to be inaccessible. The tutorial also has a bit of a gag that I found funny. If you press the button to say you don't understand, the text changes. I will vaguely tell you how this puzzle works in the code, but I'm gonna try my best to avoid giving too much away before the game is even out. The puzzle lock on the door has 2 arrays of name variables in it, one for correct differences and one for incorrect differences. When the game starts, it gets a random number of wrong differences and a random number of right differences. I won't say how many of each, but you can know it equals to 10 when added up. When you interact with the lock, it hands its differences off to the player's inventory, where the puzzles are kept. It then combines them into an array, shuffles that array 3 times, and then makes each difference into a button. The buttons already know if their difference is right or wrong, but you need to select all of the correct differences in order to progress. Pick enough wrong ones and the puzzle will shuffle and reset. Sorry about being so vague, I just don't want to ruin the puzzle for you when you get to play the game. At some point in the future, after the game is done, I'll make a video going over how every single puzzle works and giving their exact solutions. Okay, this section of the video is going to be mostly technical stuff, so it could be a little boring, but I'll try my best to make it not that way. So, Unreal Engine has a bit of a bad reputation online. It's known for being super resource intensive and running horribly on low-end PCs. But this can be fixed if you know what you're doing, and I'd like to think I know what I'm doing. So I'm doing my best to optimize everything in my game to the very best of my abilities, so even the worst computers can run it. I went over this in the last video. I disabled a ton of unnecessary Unreal Engine stuff that improves quality and lighting. My game is supposed to look old. I don't need this stuff. The next step was to make it so that if an object cannot be seen, it's not loaded. To accomplish this, I made an actor called BP Room Handler. This actor sits out of bounds and whenever the player moves, and when the game starts, it does its thing. Each location the player can click on in the game has a name, and a BP Room Handler has a big list of these names. When the player moves, it checks its big list of rooms to find the one the player is in. It then loads that room and all of its relevant objects. Every room that is not that room is unloaded. However, this did cause some issues with rooms that allow the player to click around in them, most notably the second bedroom, because in the code, the spot by the closet is technically one room, and the spot in the middle of the room is technically a second room. So I had to implement an exceptions system. The spot in the middle of the second bedroom is currently the only exception. It just keeps the room loaded when you go there. But now it all works, and BP Room Handler is going to remain in use for the rest of the game. So this is the major thing that got added since I did my first script for this video. I originally was going to hold off on adding a saving and loading system until much later, but I realized it's much easier to add it now than to have to add it in the future. I would happily explain how this all works, but I didn't make it. I bought it off the Unreal Marketplace. I've tried to make my own save system before, and it was a nightmare, so I vowed never again. Right now you can only have one save, and you can save at any time from your inventory, and can load it from the main menu. In the future, I'll expand this into multiple save slots and auto-saves and stuff, but for now, this works fine. The same person who made the saving plugin I bought also made a plugin for global variables. This means I could send information between actors without it being too resource intensive. I immediately bought this, and now it's being used to keep track of what puzzles the player has completed and if they've interacted with them at least once. I kind of wish I found this sooner. There's a lot of variables I could go back and replace using this. That would probably be a lot of work, and I don't want it. Originally, House of Neverdone used some AI-generated text and images. The text was for the intro that you see when you hit the new game button. I went in and rewrote this with some original text by myself. I know my whole persona is a robot, but there's still a human behind the persona, and I'd rather have some not-so-good human writing than some AI writing. The AI image was actually the little image that slides on screen at the start of the game. The logo for Abyss Games It's now been replaced by one of the face images I use in my videos. That isn't permanent either though, since at some point I'll need to do a whole rebrand with a new mascot logo for this channel. I don't own the rights to the character I use, I just really like them. They fit the vibe of me quite nicely, but I also don't want to be sued. My take on AI is quite simple. It can be used to help you on your way, but should never be your final product. I'm sorry if that upsets all the AI enthusiasts, but AI-generated things can never, ever fully replace a human. I'm sure a lot of you are confused. Clock. What clock? To that I say, how dare you? In the first video, I talked about how I created text that appears whenever you hover over something. I gave 2 examples, one of which was the clock. The clock was the only object in the game to have yellow text. Yellow text is meant to be like developer commentary stuff that breaks the fourth wall. The clock specifically mentioned that it actually functioned and showed the correct time, but due to the pixelated effect on the screen, the player could never properly read it. This was a lie. The clock never showed any time aside from 12 o'clock, but it is no longer a lie. Now the clock actually does show the proper time. Was this a waste of my time? Probably. Does it add anything to the game at all? No. Can the player still not see it very well? Absolutely. Am I still gonna talk about it? You bet. So the clock works based on your computer's time. It checks every second to see what the time is. Despite this, it doesn't have a second hand, only a minute hand and an hour hand. But whenever it detects that the time on your system is different, it shifts the minute hand or hour hand to a specific rotation based on that time, where each respective hand would point to the proper location. For the hour hand, it wasn't that bad. I only had to find the rotation for 12 numbers. But for the minute hand, I had to find the rotation for 60 numbers. 0 all the way to 59. It is a massive blueprint. It sucks, and I hate it. Here's a picture of it. It looks like a weird bird. I even drew it in MS Paint, show what I mean? Wow, that was a long rant. Sorry, on to the outro. For now, that's all I have to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, or just want to hear more from me, consider liking and subscribing. If you're feeling generous, maybe even leave some feedback in the comments. I will be reading every single one I get. This has been Abyss. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.